Is God a personal being or simply energy or consciousness? Now, this is a question that we have got many times through comments, and this is a question that I see at many places. So, I wanted to give the Advaitic perspective for this question and explain to you how I look at reality and how I have come to understand reality after looking at various philosophies, religions, and scriptures. The Adhvaitha channel is about consciousness and conscious creation. Here we explore Vedanta and various other teachings from India to understand the nature of reality and to consciously create our lives. Here we will explore two spiritual giants and their profound explanations on reality to understand whether God is personal or it is just something which is beyond form and which is simply energy or consciousness. We will be looking at the teachings of Shri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Adiguru Shankaracharya. As you all know, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also was an Advaitin. He taught Advaitha, but he is mostly famous for devotion, for his relationship with Mother Kali, and his experimentation with different religions and philosophies. While Adiguru Shankaracharya was very clear and very intellectual in nature, and he propounded the doctrine of Advaita Vedanta to the world. So through these two perspectives and through these two teachings, we will come to an understanding of what this reality actually is and who God actually is. Now let's start with Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa taught what is now being called as integral Advaita, where he accepts that the reality is one and everything is one at the deepest level, but still the universe is a manifestation of that same divine consciousness. So that same God, Brahman consciousness has become the universe. So this is how we can understand the teachings of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Swami Vivekananda also. And not just this, for Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, the personal God, Mother Kali, was as real as the infinite consciousness or Brahman. So let us look at a few sentences from his teachings and lectures to understand this better. I am now reading from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, October 28, 1882. Master, no one can say with finality that God is only this and nothing else. He is formless, and again he has forms. For the Bhakta, he assumes forms, but he is formless for the Jnani, that is, for him who looks on the world as a mere dream. The Bhakta feels that he is one entity and the world another. Therefore, God reveals himself to him as a person. But the Jnani, the Vedantist, for instance, always reasons, applying the process of not this, not this. Through this discrimination, he realizes by his inner perception that the ego and the universe are both illusory, like a dream. Then the Jnani realizes Brahman in his own consciousness. Think of Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, as a shoreless ocean. Through the cooling influence, as it were, of the Bhakta's love, the water has frozen at places into blocks of ice. In other words, God now and then assumes various forms for his lovers and reveals himself to them as a person. But with the rising of the sun of knowledge, the blocks of ice melt. Now let's come to the teachings of Shri Adiguru Shankaracharya. As per Shankara, this world is simply an appearance. The appearance is from the perspective of Jiva, who is an avidya. Avidya is ignorance. And as per Shankaracharya, the world is not a real manifestation of God, and God is real, and the world is an appearance. So Shankaracharya said, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. Brahman is real, God is real, world is just an appearance. So God and the world both cannot be real. The wave is simply an appearance in the ocean. Does wave have a independent existence? No. What is a wave? It is simply a name. Ultimately, it is water, it is Brahman. Just like this, the world is God in its essence. This was Shankara's doctrine. And not only this, Shankaracharya's teachings on the personal God can be understood in this way. This is my understanding of Shankara's Adhvaitha Vedanta. So, as per Shankaracharya, there is one infinite consciousness, or Brahman, or the absolute reality. And the universe and the time space reality is simply an appearance within it. The universe is nothing but Brahman. But the duality and the time space reality that we experience as individuals is because of our mind. It is because of our ego, our identification, and our avidya. Basically, we have identified as individual beings at a causal level, and this identification has projected a reality for us to experience as individuals. So that is what we are experiencing as a dualistic world. So this is the paradigm. But the personal God, whether it is Mother Kali or Shri Krishna, Narayana, Shiva, etc., as per Shankaracharya, is simply that same infinite consciousness from the perspective of the Jiva who is in avidya. It is the same consciousness, the same infinite consciousness, which is real and absolute. But when looked at from the individual perspective of Jiva, that becomes the personal God, because human mind cannot conceive the infinite consciousness, which is beyond all parameters and beyond all qualities. So, our mind conceives that infinite consciousness as Shiva, as Vishnu, and as different gods. So, this is how the personal God can be understood from the perspective of the classical Advaita Vedanta of Sri Shankaracharya. So, now let me read a few verses from Shankara's work to understand his perspective. Now, Adiguru Shankaracharya says this in his Sutra Bhashya. Hence, in the sentences of this kind, the formless Brahman alone, just as it is spoken of by the texts themselves, has to be accepted. But the other texts, speaking of Brahman with form, that is, God with form, have injunctions about meditations as their main objectives. So, as long as they do not lead to some contradiction, their apparent meanings should be accepted. It is according to this that one is driven to the conclusion that Brahman is formless and not the opposite. Shankara's explanations are more technical, but I will explain it here. Shankaracharya is basically telling that the ultimate reality that we can call God is truly beyond form. When we translate it in English, when we say formless, it sounds like a limitation, but it is actually not. It means beyond forms. That reality is beyond all forms, but yet when a devotee has to worship and a sadhaka has to meditate upon it, it becomes difficult for one to meditate upon the formless or that which is beyond form. So the devotee conceives a form, and since that God is the infinite potential, that same God or Brahman or the ultimate consciousness assumes that form for the sake of devotee to help devotee navigate through the journey. Shankaracharya's view on reality can be explained simply with the classical example of the rope and the snake. In this example, the rope that appears as a snake from afar was always the rope. It was never the snake. So, this world is simply an appearance. It's a perspective from the individual's avidya, and it is simply unreal at the fundamental level. So, only God is. Everything else is not. This is the simple truth of Advaita Vedanta. Whereas Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's teaching can be looked at with a simple example that he himself gives. He looks at reality as the literal transformation of God. Just like wax becoming everything, from a tree to a plant to a world to a human being, and that wax is nothing but God. and the world is the literal transformation of God. But both of these great beings agree at the fundamental level that everything is one and God is that ultimate reality. After all this, you might be wondering, how can these two great spiritual teachers differ so much in their explanations? Are they talking about different things, or are they talking about the same thing in different ways? For me, this is how I have come to understand this reality. Reality is beyond comprehension of the mind. It is beyond language and words. This is what, in fact, the Upanishads say. In fact, the Kena Upanishad says the truth, the Brahman, is that which is beyond the mind, but it is that which enables the mind, and it is that which cannot be seen, but it is that through which seeing happens, and it is that which cannot be heard, but it is that through which hearing itself happens. So basically, Upanishads tell us in many places that the essential nature of reality or God is beyond the mind, because mind is a limited instrument. It has boundaries, and these boundaries are time, space, and causality. So God is beyond time, beyond space, and beyond causality. So it cannot be fully grasped by the mind. But these great philosophers like Shankara make us understand that ultimate reality as much as possible through their works. So, Advaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaita, and other religions and philosophies are different models of reality, are different perspectives to understand God and to understand the reality which is beyond understanding. In my understanding, all of these teachers are talking about the same reality, but they are talking about them in different ways. They are giving their own slightly unique perspectives on that ultimate reality. And we can simply choose that which resonates with us the most, or we can simply work on ourselves, go deep within, and find out the truth for ourselves and put it out there for the world from our perspective. But in my own exploration of different teachings, different philosophies, the classical Advaita Vedanta of Adiguru Shankaracharya logically makes the most sense. For me, it is the highest perspective, and it has given me a lot of clarity on what God is and what reality is and who I am in my essence. So I hope this exploration was useful for you. And if you want to delve deeper into conscious creation, which is about making use of the principles of Vedanta in a practical way for professionals and entrepreneurs and seekers to create their ideal life of fulfillment, then check out the link in the description to watch the video on conscious creation and to join us at ACS. Next, you can watch this video that we had made on the nature of consciousness and what consciousness really is. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one. Subscribe to Advaita to wake up. Shivoham.